Greetings and welcome. I am so excited. I'm glad that everyone is tuning into Sisters Time. And if you're listening to us now on Facebook, I'm so excited that you're here as well because you're getting the first of what will be broadcast later this week on Thursday on my show on WRFG Atlanta 89.3 FM. So let me just get it started. Hey, I'm Dazon,
Hey.
and we are Sisters Time, your audio magazine featuring the life, the health, the rhythm, and the culture of women of African descent and those of you who love us. And I have the most exciting moment right now to have this conversation with my sister, my friend, and my colleague, and now our permanent leader, because I don't want to say you weren't our leader already, but our permanent leader. I am having a conversation today with none other than Alexis McGill Johnson, newly appointed permanent president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Federation of America and the Planned Parenthood Action Fund. Welcome, Alexis.
Thank you for having me, Dazon. It's so good to see your face.
It's good to see yours as well. And I love that photo of you and baby girl. That's awesome. So perfect setting. So Alexis says, as folks know, when they tune into Sisters Time, WomenSpeak, the first thing we want to do is make sure that the audience, just like my Nana, will want to know who you are. So we're sitting at her kitchen table and my Nana comes in, rest her soul. She comes in and she looks at me and she says, "Hey, baby." And then she looks at you and she looks back at me and she goes, "Well, hey, baby, who is this? And who are peoples?" Right? She want to know, who are you? Where are you from? What's your story? Who are you from? And in that story, if there's a moment that was a defining moment or a pivotal point, an experience that put you on the pathway or helped predetermine, if you will, where you are, who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing what you are now. So if there's a moment that that said, "This is why I'm here," let's hear that. So who is Alexis and how did she get here?
Oh my goodness, that is such a great question. I am my mother's daughter, first of all. I'm Sister K. Sometimes we call her Comrade K. I'm Comrade K's kin. And Comrade K is Comrade Carrie's daughter, because my grandmother, who her people's from North Carolina, she grew up, wanted to elope. Her father, who's a sharecropper, said no. She got on a train all by herself with her fiance, got up to the north, cut off her hair, and mailed it back to her father, and said, "I'm free."
I'm in love with that. I am in love with that so much.
And I meditate on that story because I think that's the freedom she passed on to my mother, who was corporate executive by day and organizer by night, who was always doing something and opening up doors and helping people get on their feet and giving them pathways all through. They were at my kitchen table. And, I felt like I had no choice. That was in my blood when I came of age. I was always someone who was a race woman. I didn't have the language around feminism and all of that. Growing up, we just were doing. And by the time I came into, got through college, the language had shifted so much where my mom was like, "You have to earn it now. You have to actually earn all the sacrifices that we made," and created paths for us to have new conversations around what it meant to be Black in America. And so, so I went on to academia, where we met our mutual sister friend, Anna, and became a political scientist, started teaching around politics and race. And, that work, I think, has always been around just how do we come up with like a, what are the theories of change that we need to test and evolve and iterate around getting to freedom? Because knowing that, we had laws that said we were, but knowing that the reality and the practice of how we could express our freedom, we still continue to have a long way to go. And, it was the work that I did, rethinking how to organize the hip hop generation, working with artists to help them, understand how we could appropriate some of the infrastructure around how we used to turn people out every Tuesday to get a record, how we could turn folks out for a vote. That was my first iteration outside of the academy. building out barbershop programs, all of that into the electoral side. And then just after did that through so many campaigns, just after when after Obama became our president, our forever president, there was forever. The conversations around race were still, we're going underground. And so working with a bunch of social psychologists and researchers around how our brains process race, and knowing that we needed new language around bias and how bias operates in our bodies became my new hustle. And so I founded the Perception Institute, and we started translating the science around how our brains process not just bias, but also the anxiety and how we have those conversations, how we live with those in education and policing and healthcare and politics. And when Starbucks shut their stores down, 10 years into our organization, we were able to provide the curriculum to do that work. So I've been sitting at the nexus of race and freedom for so long, and quite frankly came into reproductive rights and reproductive justice a lot later, because I had been so focused on just identifying the racial component of it.
And then found that coming into reproductive rights, that racial component of freedom and the sexual and reproductive health, rights, justice, and freedoms were completely not just intersectional, but intertwined.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. And it was about the same. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say it was literally about the same time that I started Perception that I saw those Operation Genocide billboards with a little black girl's face on it that said the most dangerous place for African Americans is in the womb. And that just it just shook my brain.
Right. And we were part of that campaign when the first billboards went up right here in Atlanta. And so, but the thing is that you came in and you say it was later, but you've actually had sort of the volunteer path at Planned Parenthood that most people have in career paths in the cultural sector, right? You come in participating in some level of the leadership as a board member at Planned Parenthood, as an advisor in a lot of ways, even being a face and the spokesperson or a spokesperson for a while. But now you're at the helm and the second Black woman to lead Planned Parenthood. And I think people also should know that Planned Parenthood also has a global component to it, as well as all of the work that you do. I literally posted that that I'm having a conversation with a Black woman who is now leading one of the most vital resources for women and girls on the planet. So I'm just saying that because I truly believe that, and that there's nothing perfect about any of us, but there's a lot to say about the power of what Planned Parenthood is. So I want to ask you, moving from race and racism and looking at it from a freedom and a justice lens, what made you say yes? Because you've been in the interim, so you kind of knew what this job was for the past year or so. And after doing this for a year, you were like, hey, this is like hello, New York.
I know, you missed us out. Give it 1 second.
Okay, I can only imagine what it was like a few weeks ago before things got better in New York. I can't even imagine how many times you were hearing that. So what I was asking is, what after a year of running this massive operation, what made you say, yes, I'm going to take this on permanently until I do what I came here to do?
I think what I've thought a lot about over the year is, and particularly in thinking about taking this on, is what is the contribution that I feel like I can make uniquely in this role, right? That I don't want to sit and hold a seat unless I actually see what I can contribute, right? And there's a difference, right, between ambition and contribution. And I think sometimes people confuse those or don't actually figure out how they link. And I think, the intensity of the attacks, the relentlessness of the attacks that we've been experiencing particularly around access to abortion, but extends, all throughout sexual and reproductive health and race. It just felt like there was a moment of understanding. As you know, Planned Parenthood's a complicated organization. It is a mass federation of 48 affiliates and 15 million supporters who are increasingly looking like us, more diverse, more inclusive, more woke, and more intersectional. And I felt like as a board leader, so much of the work that I had been doing was really trying to draw the connections between the movements in ways that were appropriate, like the right boundaries for a reproductive rights organization to have, right? Because even I'm 100% clear, even as a Black woman leading Planned Parenthood, we're not a reproductive justice organization, but we have to figure out how we align and support that work differently, and how we use our platform. And I really think that there's a theory about how we use the power that Planned Parenthood has built, particularly over the last decade, to grow power, to support, to engage in ways that aren't always front forward, right? I think there are obviously attacks that come directly us that we respond to, but I think there are other ways in which we have to show up differently. And I felt like I could be uniquely a bridge builder in the donor community, in the in our affiliate community, in our movement community and partner community, and because I've lived in all of those places, and so holding that, and really just having that deep desire to be a student and create a learning organization, have Planned Parenthood be an incredible learning organization, I think has been what I felt like I could help do to stabilize in this moment.
I love that. So you just answered that whole question about what is it that you want to do with your tenure at Planned Parenthood. And so in that vein, there's a lot going on in this whole context of anti-Black racism and the struggle for racial justice and equity in this country. And as a result of this, of course, is a global movement that people are joining from everywhere. And there are a lot of executive directors and presidents and CEOs of some really big national organizations that are seen as more mainstream, that are not, the grassroots, Black-led, Black-serving, people of color groups, women-led. And they're having a tough time in those spaces right now, whether it's with their boards or with their membership or with their constituencies, because of the front forward, as you said, way that they are choosing as a leader in that organization to address the anti-Black racism within the organization, as well as how that organization shows up in the movement. So what's it like really in that place and in that space for those of us who want to who have your back, for others who want to have your back and know what it's like to be in this position at this time? Just talk a little bit about that.
It is the thing that I think is the most challenging, that I've always felt as a board leader, and certainly have heard from our teams, particularly our Black women leaders inside of the organization, is how easy it is to feel erased, right? When I look at my the folks that I identify with, the work that I identify, folks like you who have been in this movement for so long, grounding it, like, you're my touchstone. And if I feel like disappointing you will hurt more than anything else, because I know that where my values are around making sure that we are, eradicating anti-Black racism and really doing the right work and building the right competencies and skill sets internally. But sometimes, like an organization like Planned Parenthood is it's a fast moving machine, right? I mean, it is I said we have 15 million supporters. One in 5 women has been to a Planned Parenthood in their organization. We're a healthcare provider on the ground. And so sometimes it's easy to make a misstep in the journey, and then it will go around the world and come back at you before you've had time to really refine yourself or learn from it. So it's the so the support that I feel like, and I feel like I have this so genuinely from you and others, is the grace and the grace to push forward and make the mistakes and missteps, because this is really, really hard work. It is structural, it is cultural, and it isn't just about, X person said this, or this microaggression, or this mistake. It is, they get amplified because it's the New York Times and and it's really hard to just to stay grounded in where you want to go without people seeing, and letting you have those missteps and failures.
Yeah, absolutely. We got you. We're with you as someone who is not at the stage in terms of the size, but in terms of the complexities and the layers of leadership in this space and in this work as Black women, as Southerners. That's my other layer to that this is critical work for us to stay with each other through. And I'm really grateful for you thinking through like that. So I just wanted to ask you, when you came in as interim, I think one of your earliest boss moves was to decline Title X funding, right? When the rules got doubled down by the current occupant in the 1600 Black Lives Matter Plaza. That's what I'm giving his address. I wanted to send, I thought for his birthday, for the current so-called ruler of the United States, that we should have sent them a nice, happy birthday on envelopes that were addressed to 1600 Black Lives Matter Plaza. So I think that, but given that, when he expanded on what we know colloquially as the global gag rule, or some people know the Mexico City rule, it now has a new name that I don't even want to give it speak because it doesn't make any sense. It also came home. And as a result of that, you all decided to say, we don't want your money if you're going to gag us, basically, if you're going to restrict women and girls and youth from accessing the services that we have to deliver, that are provided by law and that are provided by necessity. How's it been? How's it been? Because it couldn't have been easy. That's a lot of money. It's not your bread and butter, but it is a lot of money. How's it been?
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's been incredibly tough. I mean, the ask was, will you provide substandard care? And we were like, hell no, that's not what we do. And when people are coming to us for trusted information and some of the most intimate conversations they may have in their lifetime, no, we're going to provide them what they need and what they ask for. And it was obviously really, really difficult to do. Some states have been able to backfill and support. There were some of our affiliates and health centers who really depended a lot on the resources, and some of those states were able to backfill. But I honestly think that just standing in the value and saying we're going to find ways to take care of people who are coming to Planned Parenthood, people who may be undocumented, low income, people don't even know they're getting Title X resources, right? Because they just know that that we will, regardless of their ability to pay, we will find ways to see them. And I think that that has rallied the staff and the team and support. But it's not, this is not a it's not a long-term solution, right? I mean, charity is not justice, and public, as a key part of public health infrastructure, we need to make sure that we continue our fighting demand, and quite frankly, fighting to modernize the Title X program too, right? Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of challenges around implementation, and we need to make sure that we are working with our partners to figure out how to fight for even more.
Right. It starts with permanently killing the Hyde Amendment. It starts with a lot more people demanding what is rightfully ours in a healthcare environment. And in terms of being a part of the public health infrastructure, as a provider of healthcare that we had to even fight to get determination of as an essential health service during the coronavirus or the COVID-19 response in this country and around the world, where in a lot of places, the sexual and reproductive health and the response to violence has been not deemed essential health services. So those workers weren't allowed to move and work. You all have made some adjustments. You talked about being fairly nimble as this big organization. How have you made what has Planned Parenthood had to do to adjust in this current, some people are calling it the new normal. I don't think anything was normal before. So how is Planned Parenthood adjusting in this COVID-19 environment and response? And I'm sure it's really different in the affiliates because there are different ways that the states have responded to but what overall has the Federation done to adjust for COVID-19?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we were able to do as a federation was actually ramp up our telehealth services, right? Our ability to see patients online through Zoom or other methodologies that really help our help connect and in some ways fill the gaps of Title X in ways that are a lot more seamless. And so, those conversations had been around the Federation for almost a decade. And we moved that decade, in about 10 days when the regulations changed. And I think just even being able to provide abortion care, right? To even be able to provide, have that visit and then have the patient drive up and get, almost like a drive-through to get access to medication, abortion, and then follow up visit at home, I think is again revolutionary, and it's given us a sense. We've all been planning, in concert, a world that we know we're so close to, right? In terms of a world post Roe and Casey, and I think what COVID did was it really showed us like not just as a disruptor, but it actually accelerated that world in a lot of ways. And so really testing some of our assumptions about how we would, work together and what would be needed in order to provide care, I think has been a huge piece. But certainly telehealth, I think, is one of the biggest advents of that.
Yep, I completely concur. We had to make those shifts and adjustments, and I'm like, I'm a small nonprofit, and here we go. We're going to get a digital content strategist so we can keep going in a virtual world and deliver services and continue to do our advocacy. So we're close to your time and my time. I got to come in because a couple of weeks ago, what I am now going to forever call the third week of June as the second week of June, the People's Liberation Week, right? Because, June is always SCOTUS time, and the Supreme Court on Monday, the 15th, dropped the ruling around inclusion of LGBTQ protections in the workplace, Title VII. Then the next day, I considered a part of my world because we're in South Africa. So it was National Youth Day, celebrating the 44th anniversary of the Soweto uprising. 700 plus children were killed in the fight against apartheid, started the end of the apartheid era. Then we had the DACA decision, and then we had, the whole country now knowing what Black people have known for a century plus around Juneteenth. And then we started this week with a new SCOTUS decision that we didn't know when it was going to come, but it dropped on Monday. The June court case in Louisiana, big ups to Women with a Vision and Lakeisha Watkins and Lakeisha and Dion Haywood and Shakita Borden and all of those amazing people. I'm doing my We're Not Worthy thing for them because they moved mountains in Louisiana for us this week. Tell us about that. Tell us about that decision and what that means for Planned Parenthood, especially where the affiliates might have been most impacted by a negative. So what did we protect?
Yeah. Shout out to all of our sisters at Women with a Vision. What the decision is, right, is that it means that we can breathe a sigh of relief because the court ruled that and Roberts in particular ruled that the whole women's health argument stands, right? That admitting privileges are an undue burden. And so, what it means is that abortion access is protected in Louisiana for now. It doesn't mean, that it is expanded. There still is limited access, but it does mean that the right is protected in Louisiana. What it means for an organization like Planned Parenthood is that that this particular ban can't ripple effect across the country, right? What we anticipated is if they struck down the law, or they let the law stand rather, that all these other state legislatures would say, oh, well, that's a great way to limit access to abortion. They would pass those through their legislatures, or even, perhaps do it by executive order, since we've seen that that's also a tool that they are willing to use during the pandemic. And so, so it means we can pause and we can exhale for 2 seconds. That's what it means. But the reality is we have 16 other cases that are winding their way up, that are, a step away from the Supreme Court. And that the Supreme Court still will have an impact on determining access to abortion. The irony is that for all of us, the courts have always been our stopgap for some of these most repressive restrictions. And because the federal judiciary has been remade under Trump, 200 conservative judges, right, who are not just anti-choice, right? Some of them are so extreme. They don't believe in vitro. They don't believe in surrogacy. And that's just on repro. There obviously, as we know, a lot of other intersecting issues on which they will make very difficult decisions that will impact Black people,
right,
people of color, and LGBTQ folks and everything. Right? So that is, so I celebrated, you celebrated, we all celebrated on Monday, and then Tuesday we're like, okay, back to work. It's great that Robert's respected precedent. That's wonderful. But we know it has more to do.
Yes, you're giving me something we already had, so thank you for that. And there's the next thing, because they also went ahead and doubled down on the prostitution pledge, which also affects so many different organizations and institutions. They made a whole lot of other decisions this week, including the inability to really watchdog the Consumer Protection Bureau. So there's a lot of other death by cuts, if you will, of how people can erode our access, whether it's through our economic means. Last question before I let you go is, when you decided that this was going to be the permanent thing that I do, you said, this is the one major thing that I want to ensure, because you talked a little bit about in terms of the process and the education and the programs and where you want to leave it. And I'll back it up and say, I had a conversation with the person who was in charge just before you came in as the interim, when we all met as women of color. And one of the charges, because just as you said, your reproductive rights organization, not reproductive justice. I think that as we go forward, the browner, the Blacker, the younger, and the more female this country gets, Planned Parenthood may enter, this is a little controversial, but Planned Parenthood may find themselves in a place where RJ, because of the intersectionality of all of our lives, those groups I just talked about, is going to have to think about the RJ infrastructure of who they are, or in 30, 40 years might not be as relevant as we are right now as Planned Parenthood. Is that something that you think about? Or what is it you say, when I leave, this is what I want to make sure I have definitely shifted, that is sustainable shifts at Planned Parenthood? I'm personally cheering and voting for Planned Parenthood to actually adopt and embrace RJ at some point. That's mine. What's yours?
I mean, yeah, and again, what I'm trying to do is lay the foundation for an RJ takeover. Because it is the framework. It is the patients who are seen at Planned Parenthood health centers are living at the intersection. And I think we've done a lot of work to understand, and educate, right? I mean, we've had to educate donors and supporters and staff around what does it actually mean to center a patient, right? What does it actually mean? What do their lives look, and how do we respond? What are the, my job, I feel like over the next few years, is to really ensure that we have the skill sets and competencies to do that, from, working with our health centers, affiliate health centers, through the national office,
Mhm.
and that we really understand we understand how that is a critical part of, supporting the movement for freedom and justice. And so, I've always said we don't have to help people imagine what freedom looks like, right? They know what freedom looks like, but we do have to actually be a part of creating the right infrastructure, and fighting for the right policies and things. And so, if I could leave here in a few years, being completely aligned and ripe for with the right framework to support that takeover, whatever that looks like, to me that is that would be a tremendous contribution, I think, to make in this space.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end our conversation just for today. And to let you know that we will ride that all the way with you, Alexis, and beyond. Whatever is next for Planned Parenthood under your leadership, we got you. We're with you. And thank you so much for taking the helm. Thank you so much for your conversation today. I look forward to many, many more. And please keep running. Keep running. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dazon. Thank you so much for your leadership and friendship. It means the world to me.
You got it. Anytime. Bye. All right. That was amazing, right? That was an incredible conversation. And I'm so grateful for Alexis sharing her time with us this morning. I'm trying to make sure. There we go. I'm so grateful to her for sharing this time with us. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be broadcasting this live on Thursday at 6 o'clock on WRFG Atlanta, 89.3 FM. And on the World Wide Web, .wrfg.org, where you can stream live, and you can also download us with WRFG as an app to your mobile devices. I'm Dazon. We're Sisters Time Women Speak. Thank you so very, very much.